Hello, welcome back to the Football Terrace. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, do me a massive favor, hit the like button, share button, and please download Flick, where the Football Terrace community continues talking all things football, polls, competitions, and all sorts going on over there. We're here to talk Chelsea and the proposed signing of Kai Havertz. There are big reports today that the deal is moving into the final stages. The transfer negotiations are coming to an end. We're just over halfway through August now. We're 2 or 3 weeks away from the Premier League resuming. And this is a massive deal for the whole of football. And I felt this for a long, long time now. That, of course, it's huge for Chelsea. You bring in a player with the capabilities and the ceiling that Kai Havertz possesses, you can take your teams to new levels. But it is also potentially the base mark and benchmark and catalyst that will kickstart the transfer market. When you look across the spectrum, there's been a few signings, some small signings here and there, some decent signings as well. The Højbjergs to Tottenham, the Akes to Man City, but nothing as marquee, as standout, as headline making as Kai Havertz. And the report here that I read says Chelsea are close to sealing a deal for Kai Havertz from Bayer Leverkusen. According to multiple reports, personal terms are not thought to be a problem as they have been agreed prior, but the Blues have been struggling to strike an agreement over the past few weeks in relation to a transfer fee with the Bundesliga side. Havertz impressed last season, netting 18 goals and providing 9 assists in all competitions. That alerted many of European sides of his talents. I doubt that did. I think people are already aware of who Kai Havertz was. Anyway, it goes on to speak about other players that they're interested in. It says transfer expert Kevin Palmer believes a deal which would see Havertz move to Chelsea is now very close. He tweeted, Chelsea are in the final stages of negotiations over the deal for Kai Havertz. Discussions are focusing on the structure of the performance-related payments. And this is something I speak so much on this channel. The fees are not always the major problem. The fees aren't necessarily what hold these deals back. It's more to do with how the fees are structured. When will Leverkusen receive their money? The lump sum up front, the payments made annually or bi-yearly via amortization. And then there is the most difficult part to negotiate from the club's point of view. It's the clauses that trigger the performance-related bonuses, the add-ons as they are. Chelsea want them to be as complex and as difficult as possible to achieve, meaning they may not ever have to pay them. And of course, Bayer Leverkusen want them to be simple. You know, sort of, if Kai Havertz spells his name right on his application form for the house he rents, we get £5 million. That type of simple. And but it is happening. And this is another one of those deals that I have been, there was just too much noise for too long about this for it not to come to fruition, for this not to happen. So for me, it's an absolute cast iron. This deal is happening. It's going to go ahead. He will become a Chelsea player. So I want your views and I want your opinions on that. Get your super chats in. Remember, members will dedicate a lot of ourselves to yours as well. Skype lines are open. If you want to call the show, please feel free to. Comment here says Kai Havertz and Sancho double signings to Aldershot. Like that. Jamie Brim, one of our members here, says, hope you're doing well, Terry. Don't listen to the negative BS merchants. And I honestly don't know how fellow Gooners are bantering United for last night. You guys already got third. Look, you're always going to get. I appreciate you saying that, Jamie. Listen, it doesn't bother. There are things in life that bother me. I hate being led up the garden path. I hate people continuing to change their mind. I dislike it when people are dishonest with me in any way. I hate it when people are dishonest in that regard. So you'll get kind of professional pundits, as an example, deliberately lying to their audiences about what good or bad looks like or about a situation. That kind of thing annoys me. Banter from rivals. Water off a duck's back, mate. David here has a comment. He says, United got to 3 semi-finals. I'm happy with that this year. Well done, Ollie. Cedric Levy says, this deal could settle the price that United pay for Sancho. And I think that's a really good point. There is going to be a big moment, a big deal, a headliner that's going to happen in the next week or two, and I think it will set a precedent. It will mark the starting price, and then everything will be cheaper or more expensive based on who the player is. Speaking of cheaper, there are some reports I've read as well about Chelsea putting in a £40 million bid for Lewis Dunk. I saw Lewis Dunk kind of trending last night on Chelsea Twitter, people talking about how good he is and what he could bring to the club. I think it's an interesting signing. It's definitely left field. And it's certainly one that I think, I would endorse if I was a chief. Man United were looking at Lewis Dunk, I'd be quite happy, really. Is he a Koulibaly? Is he a Van Dijk? Probably not. But at £40 million in this climate, I think it's good value. We've got O'Shea Johnson back on the show. Hello, buddy. What do you want to say?
Yeah. How you doing, Terry?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Can't complain. Look, this Kai Havertz deal is obviously it's a great deal. Amazing player, and very young as well. And I know a lot of the time when I come on here, I've always got these mad theories and analogies and stuff. But it could be a thing that is because I don't feel like Chelsea, like if Liverpool signed works for Sancho, for example, right? They wouldn't be guaranteed first team football. They'd be depth players. They'd come on. They would learn the how the club plays. They would learn the players. All of that. Whereas I feel like Chelsea are going to sign Kai Havertz, and Frank Lampard's plan is to immediately put him into that squad. The same with Werner. The same with Hakim Ziyech. Now with Hakim Ziyech, he's played Champions League football, and I think he's 27. Whereas Havertz is 20 years old. Now, look, talent is talent. Look at Trent Alexander-Arnold. He was 19 when he broke into the Liverpool first team, but it is a lot of weight to put on a kid's shoulders, especially someone coming from Bayer Leverkusen. It's not. At least Jadon Sancho's come from Dortmund, a big club. So I just feel like it could be a very, very risky signing because I don't think Lampard is going to think like Klopp. I don't think he's going to act like Klopp. I think Lampard will put him straight in the first team and disregard Kovacic and Jorginho. And I think that's just my opinion. I just want your thoughts on that.
Look, I don't think it's a bad opinion that you put out there. I feel there's always a possibility of these deals not working straight away. If you look at Pulisic, it took him time to fit in and settle. And I think that football fans, when we remove banter, you have to allow a manager time for his team to settle. My only concern is that Chelsea haven't turned the corner as a football club where they're going to allow a manager time to gel something together. I mean, when you look at it now, Chelsea wouldn't need, if Chelsea had more patience with young players, you wouldn't need Kai Havertz or Ziyech because you would literally have Kevin De Bruyne and Mo Salah in those positions. Yeah, but Chelsea Football Club didn't have the patience. So you could be right in the very short term that they don't hit the ground running. But it's about Chelsea having the backbone to say, we're going to stand by. And we've added Monstar to the show, of course, Chelsea fan, regular on the Football Terrace. What did you make of O'Shea's point?
Yeah, he made a good point. But I feel like with Havertz, we've now got enough around him for him to take his time. So we got good players like Werner, Christian Pulisic. We've got Mount. So he doesn't necessarily have to hit the ground running straight away. We now have good players as well, which can give him time to adapt. Same way Pulisic took time. We already had players there, to give him that time to adapt. Do you know what I mean? There were still players performing. So there was no real rush for Pulisic to perform. He just started blossoming later on in the season.
Yeah.
I hear that.
I think. Sorry, go on, Terry.
No, mate, you guys find out. Go for it.
I think the issue. I get your point there, right? With obviously Pulisic, when Liverpool was supposed to sign him, we didn't. I was gutted, and then you signed him, and he didn't. It looked like we dodged a bullet, and then back end of the season was incredible. So I get your point there. With Havertz has got enough players around him at Chelsea to not have to hit the ground running, but like the point Terry made before, are Chelsea going to give him that time? Because it's all good and true giving Pulisic the time when you're on a transfer ban, so you don't really have a lot of choice, and you've just got a new manager, and it's Frank Lampard, and everyone's in the honeymoon period. But next season, because look, Liverpool took 4 years to get to success. I just, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel like Abramovich and Chelsea and Lampard are willing to do that. I think they want success next season, and I think they're going to put Kai Havertz into that first team and have him starting almost every game. That's how I feel like the signing an £80 million player. He's been hyped up as wonder kid. He's brilliant. He's ever since Mbappe at Monaco. All these wonder kids have been hyped up as brilliant, fantastic. Drop 100 million. What is it? Atletico paid like 110 million for I can't remember.
João Felix.
João Felix, that's it, yeah. João Felix. And Arsenal paid 74 million for Pepe, and there's all these wonder kids. And I just feel like, I just don't think Lampard is gonna do, like, if Klopp signed Havertz, he wouldn't get first team football. That's one of the reasons you managed to get Werner away from us, because we couldn't guarantee him first team football. And that is a good thing for a player as young as Kai Havertz to learn the system. Whereas I feel like Chelsea, Lampard is just going to sign him and he's going to go straight into the team, centre attacking mid. You are the creator for Werner or Abraham or whoever you've got as the main striker. You are the guy, and it can either make or break a player. I just feel like that.
You say that now, but like I said with Pulisic was what, a 50-something million pound player. He didn't throw him straight in there. He gave him time to adapt. So you can't really say that with Kai Havertz. Obviously, I believe, yes, he's going to start straight away. But if he doesn't perform, I don't feel Lampard's not scared. I feel like he's brave enough to drop him and, give him that time. There's enough players now. He's not the only one there now. There's enough players where he doesn't have that pressure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
The thing is, what Kai Havertz does, he gives Chelsea a good problem.
Yeah.
He gives them that sort of situation where you're going to have too many players for those roles going into the season, and that's what you want. I compare it to Man United as it stands right now, because our new signings are a way off. We don't know who's leaving. I feel our starting attacking players I'm happy with, but there's nothing behind them that fill me with any confidence. Chelsea are going to have that in abundance next year. And the scary thing is, even if it takes them as long as Pulisic to click, you're then going to have that for 3, 4, 5, 6 years because of the age of a lot of these boys. So if I take look, as a rival, I want Chelsea to start badly, sack Lampard, and then completely change the system and discard some of these kids. That's what I want to happen. But the football fan in me, and that's because you're a threat with who you've got. There's quality there. I think Lampard's going to turn out to be a top manager. What I want to happen as a football fan, if I just stay in that kind of space of being neutral for a moment, is I want to see Chelsea stick with the manager, stick with the system, and give young players the opportunity to flourish. And I don't think next season is when we need to judge Kai Havertz and how he performs. I look at my club and I'm like, I think we'll see an improved AWB, an improved Maguire. I think we'll see an even better Bruno. I even think we might see the likes of Dan James get better as time goes on. I think football fans are so weird at the moment where we kind of forget that all of our clubs over the last 20, 30 years of our lives of watching football have had players that have taken time to settle. Didier Drogba should be the standout example for any true Chelsea fan that knows their football club in the last 15, 20 years. His first season was so average, there was big rumours of him leaving. And I remember meeting him. I bumped into him in Harrods. I don't shop in Harrods. I don't know why I was even in there. He was buying a pair of £600 Gucci shoes. That just stood out in my head because I remember looking at the price, just laughing, thinking, man, he didn't know which ones to get. I'm like, wow, I wish I could afford them. And me and my brother asked him, you staying at Chelsea? He said, his words were, hopefully. And I remember I didn't think much of it then. Like, if it was now, I'd be straight on the internet, like breaking news. Drogba might be leaving, but then it was okay, cool, and that's because he nearly did. A lot of people felt like he nearly left or he wanted to go, and then look what Drogba did after that point. Killed it.
Yeah, go on.
The issue is, Terry, and it's like I said to you a few days ago when I called in and we were talking about today's world. People want instant gratification, and that's just a fact. It's just look at Naby Keita. We signed him for what, almost 50 million, and Liverpool fans have been saying we should get rid of him. We should get rid of him. It's only now because he had a good back end of the season. People want to keep him. That is the way the world is now, Terry. It's all right. You've got individual people like yourself, and I'd consider myself one of those people that still have that brain of remembering what football was like when we gave managers and players time. But the majority of the world today, with anything, want instant gratification. You can definitely.
You are right in that, but the way you stop it is by everybody coming together and pushing back against it. Because what you'll find on social media, especially, and I'm going to sneeze in a minute, so I do apologize. I can feel it coming on, but everyone lets it go. I watched a stream earlier, and I was like, I wish this was on one of our multiple streams on the Football Terrace, where somebody gave an example about wanting to improve their team, and they felt their team needed to go out and buy experienced winners. And the two players they named were Koulibaly, and the other player's name I now forget, so I apologize. But they're both players who actually haven't won anything. So they've got the experience part, but there's no winners there. Like, they haven't actually won multiple leagues or won Champions Leagues, as an example. I can't remember who the other player was, so I apologize for that. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's not a bad opinion to have, but I'm like, why is no one challenging? And that's what I want to see more of. Is when something's popular to say, no one challenges it. Because it's popular to want instant gratification, everyone sits in there. But if football fans collectively started pushing back against it and made it an unpopular thing to do, like right now, look at what every single Arsenal fan is tweeting, say from the AFTV crew. It's back our manager, back the manager, back the manager. If you step outside that, like Lee Gunner, and say, I don't back him, I don't think he's good enough, you're now ostracized. You're literally sort of march through, I don't even remember what that city was called in the Game of Thrones, but you're just shame. Everyone's saying shame at you, stripping you naked with a bell being rung behind your head. Do you know what I mean? Lannister getting done there, right? That's what's happening to you if you don't back Mikel Arteta. In a year's time, if he ain't doing too well, the Overton window will change, and saying back the manager will get you ostracized in that way. And that's what football fans need to do, is come together and out that kind of thing and push back against it. And if enough people do it, and by the way, if the big voices on the big channels do it, you'll change the way people think and feel. There's a reason why I'm not one of them. I don't have the pull for this. It's why the big YouTubers and social media stars, that's why their names are called influencers. They're literally called influencers. That is what they are, because their views and opinions influence what other people do. And you see that all the time. I'll call out my boy Rance. When he called like Rashford, Rash Bandicoot, suddenly from nowhere, and that's his opinion, he's entitled to it. Suddenly from there, I started then everyone use that expression and talk about how he got bad decision making. I'm like, bro, no one was saying that until Rance said it. Now that Rance has said it, he's influenced thousands of people, maybe millions of people, into saying something. Do you get my point? So if enough of us push back against instant gratification, it does change people's mindset. But I hear you. It is hard for Chelsea to do that. We had David to the stream, obviously another Chelsea fan. Kai Havertz is nearing, according to Kevin Palmer and numerous other reports. And also, I'd like your opinion, David, on Lewis Dunk.
First of all, I don't know why suddenly there's only one way to play a team. Like, suddenly, because Klopp's won the league, everyone's got to do it Klopp's way. Like, if we start him and then he's really good, like, he's just really good. and if he starts off and he's not so good, we have options to come off the bench. So as you said, it's just a good problem to have.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what's your thoughts on Lewis Dunk?
I was talking to Prime and Jim about this yesterday. I said that yes, Lewis Dunk may not be like 8 out of 10, but the fact is we have centre backs that are like 2 or 3. So I'd rather have a 5 there and see if he can improve it than a 2.
Do you know what? I'll be blunt about it. He's every bit as good as Nathan Ake, and a lot of Chelsea fans were talking about bringing him back. He is no better or worse than Ake. He just isn't as fashionable.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, I fully support Lewis Dunk, because the reason why I do as well is the problem is with most teams, everyone's looking for a Van Dijk. Like, there's a million Van Dijks out there. You know, there's not. You have to look for possibly the next best thing. And what Chelsea are looking for, they're not looking for a centre-back with necessarily ability. They're looking for that brute leader, someone who's good in the air. And Lewis Dunk fits that profile. They've already got, speedsters, defenders that are good on the ball. If you combine them with, you know, someone with the attributes we're looking for, it might just work out. You never know.
It's true, and if you and Brighton, one of the attributes to play for Brighton is that you can play the ball on the ground. I guarantee you, people will be surprised at the quality of Lewis Dunk on the ball. He'll then be elevated by being in a team that isn't always being consistently attacked like he is when he's at Brighton. It will give him more time, and what he does with that time, we don't quite know. But I think for £40 million it's a snip. We've added Elite KJ. I hope it's the right Elite KJ, not one of the fake ones. What are you saying, bro?
Yeah, it's me, fam. Don't worry about
there we
that.
go. I'm glad it's you. There's so many fake profiles going around a minute on here. It's a madness. The guy that, you know, the guy that phones up and shouts pussy, he's made a trailer that he sent to me via social media of all the different times he's managed to get onto the show and say it, and he's releasing it soon. I like the creativity, but bruv, honestly, get yourself a girlfriend or a boyfriend, go on a date, do something productive with your life. Like trolling me and shouting that word, can you imagine that being your life's work? You can't put it on your CV, bro. You can't tell your friends about it on a night out. They'll laugh at you. Like, do something, my brother. Do something with your life other than troll me and shout. The irony, you're literally shouting a word at me. The thing you're saying, you're never going to get, bruv.
You don't get it, fam.
You're not, do you know what I mean? You honestly, if you paid for it, they'd say no. So listen, trust me, bruv. Like, move on with that. Anyway, Elite KJ, what you saying, bro?
Yeah, I just want to come out and say that Havertz is crap. He's a terrible. Yeah, you stream, don't take me seriously. You know, Havertz is a baller, fam. Like, he's good. I just want to talk about Lewis Dunk, since you guys have been talking about it. Now, I don't think if Chelsea signed him, it would be a good signing. However, I think what you started to see happen with Harry Maguire would also happen to Lewis Dunk, in terms of what Paul Merson said when United first signed Maguire I don't think was necessarily wrong. It was just the way he delivered what he was saying was the disrespectful part. But he was mentioning how Harry Maguire, he looks good for Leicester because he's playing for a team that at the time were sitting back, soaking up pressure, winning headers, like clearing the ball. And when you are getting the ball from defending so deep, it's easier to run out because there's more space for that defender to run into because all your players are out the way. And so he was saying that he's good at that in that Leicester system, but now that he's going to move to United, and instead of being tucked in your own box for most of the game, you actually are on the halfway line. You've got to deal with the balls over the top. You've got to deal with the speed of the players dribbling at you. You're going to see issues. And that, to be fair, that is Maguire's issue. The issue is when you get on him one-on-one, if you get past his tackle that he tries to put in, you're clean through and it's slow to recover. And Lewis Dunk, he's great for Brighton. He's able to head the ball, win the ball, play the ball well. But again, he lacks that pace. And I think with Chelsea's high line, that might expose him a bit more as well. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's going to be a bad signing, but I'm just saying that might be an issue that might come up with Lewis Dunk, because he's now transitioning from a team that sits backs and counters well to a team that dominates the ball and is pushing forward more.
I would agree with you. However, he's not being signed for 80 million pounds. He's half the price.
But the price is irrelevant. The price is irrelevant in the sense of I think Dunk's great, but based on Elite KJ's view, whether you buy him for 5 million or 500 million, if he's your starting centre back and that's his floor, and he's got the same flaws as Maguire, he's going to make the same mistakes. Now, think about this, right? If you think Maguire has made too many mistakes, would you be more accepting of that if the player was cheaper, or do you just want a centre back that isn't making those mistakes? Because that's where it comes down to. Do you get where I'm coming from? Like, I just look at it like I want a centre back who isn't going to make those mistakes. Or are those mistakes just normal in football and we should just let them go? And are we only focusing on them because Maguire was a world record price? And actually, we're just exaggerating what he does wrong because we're saying, well, he shouldn't because he was a world record price, which in itself, I think, is a flawed piece of logic. I love your view on that, David.
No, my point was that even though I don't think Dunk and Maguire are that different as defenders, like in quality, I really don't. But because he's not going to be that world record fee, like the media won't be as like trigger happy to get on his back so fast.
I'm not talking about the media. I'm talking about you as Chelsea fans and
me as a Chelsea fan.
What
it's
could
just
happen
like
who's already got defensive frailties. So if you've had someone who's good at clearing the ball, which you're wanting to find, but then when you're getting countered and dribbled at, he's getting dribble past. As Terry said, 40 million and 100 million.
Let me give you an example, David, on this. So Kante cost you £27 million. If you land Rice, he's probably going to cost you somewhere between double to 120% of that. Based on your logic, because of the money, it means you've got to judge Declan Rice with a much higher bar and standard than you did and do Kante. You see how there's a flawed logic when you judge people on their price and not their ability.
It's not about my point was it's about the media. For me personally,
forget the media, because the media will do what they do. The media do what they do. The media only catch fire. The media only do well when fans buy into it. All the slander against Maguire only exists because Man United fans, a large percentage of them, are too weak and have their bellies are yellow and they can't stand up for their own players. They would rather twerk for rivals and roll over and let their rivals tickle their belly like good little boys. They're too submissive. I'm saying to you, if you back him and he makes these mistakes, you know, is that normal? Is that right? Or do you just want to go for a different player that's maybe got a bit more speed that isn't going to have these problems? By the way, what Elite said might not be true. I mean, he might not get turned inside out like that. He might not have those problems. I'm just putting it out there that for me, the money isn't the issue. It's do you need a better centre back? Because by the way, people say that Maguire hasn't improved us. So dropping 80 million on a player that hasn't improved us is embarrassing. If you drop 40 million on a player that doesn't improve you, it doesn't matter how much you spent. Your defense ain't going to get any better. You can't progress because we all know that Chelsea. Do you understand? I'm not even going to go at you, David. I'm just saying, like, is he good enough to fix the problems in your team? Is essentially the question.
He might not be, but I think he's definitely an upgrade on what we currently have.
Okay.
Yeah, to retire on that. Yeah, I would say if you because Chelsea, what Man United don't have is that pacey centre back. Compare with Maguire. Chelsea have exactly that. So they've got about 2 or 3 really pacey centre backs that could pair with Lewis Dunk and cover him whenever he gets beat in the ways similar to how Maguire does, because Lindelof doesn't get across quick enough a lot of the times.
No, I hear that. Someone here says, Terry, you wouldn't have a channel without the media. Yeah, there's an element of truth within that. But if the media disappeared tomorrow, the Premier League would come to people like us because they need someone to push the news out. Because if no one pushed the news out, nobody would you wouldn't know what's going on. If you didn't know what was going on, there wouldn't be the anticipation. So I get your point, but it's bullshit. It's dumb, Twisted Bubba. It's dumb, boy. It's dumb. We're gonna add Glenn Martin Peterson. That is a long name. Glenn, welcome to the show. What do you want to say? Glenn? Right, he didn't answer. You there?
Before you go to the next person. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so what I think about this is that, especially with Lewis Dunk, Chilwell, and Havertz, Chelsea will be dangerous for the next 2-3 for the next years. They are going to improve a lot, and that's price doesn't have nothing to do with comparing the ability of a defender. We compare Robertson with Shaw, and we don't mention Price because they're both left backs, and we want to know who's the best, who's the better one, and who.
I mean, the price just becomes a kind of way of bantering fans, but over the course of a 2 or 3 year period, the valuation it's like a nice pint of Guinness. It just settles itself in the right amount of time. Because I always say to Liverpool fans, yes, you got Robertson cheap, but there's not Robertson's the expectation of Robertson now isn't that of an £8 million right left back. It's just one of the best in the world, because you wouldn't sell him for £8 million. So you're absolutely right in relation to that. Go on, continue making your point, mate. Sorry that I interrupted.
No problem, dude. Like Lewis Dunk will be a great signing, and it will be a transition for him. And we will see if he's better than Maguire or not. If he is, then he is, no matter the price. And as a Liverpool fan, I'm going to be scared of Chelsea in the next few years if they keep making signings every year that are of quality players like Havertz and Chilwell.
Yeah, can I just say, someone just asked what pacey centre-backs do Chelsea have? Is Tomori or Rudiger or even Zuma, are they not pacey, or am I seeing wrong? I don't know.
They're pacey, but it's whether they've got the positional sense.
That's what Lewis Dunk will bring. That's what I'm saying. But someone was saying that what pacey centre-backs do we have? I'm just answering that question for the minute.
Yeah, like you guys have got fair pace. I'll take Tomori off you any day.
No, absolutely. Someone here saying Terry is pushing negative